point forward, you are fired and you're not welcome back. Does anybody in here have a problem that I'm the person that has to say that?
No.
Mal, I'm the person that has to say that. The gall of you to think that you are observing the way that I am, to think that I have to come to you about a problem I have with another man. We have things sorely mistaken around here. That's not ego and arrogance. It's realism. So no, actually, what I was trying to do was, I was going to say that Rory's in breach. Rory's out of here. We're done. We're done with Rory. Enough of this. He has to go. In the event that you can correct your energy and your thinking and everything that's going on with you and this fucking catastrophe that's going on with you, then let's talk about reentry. But you don't get to hold the cards for reentry. Why does he keep talking that way? Can somebody answer me? Because you don't say nothing. Don't worry about it. I'll take account. I own it. I own it. I own it. I will.
Yeah.
I feel like it's cool to talk about just because, like, podcasts, anybody who listens to podcasts knows about his podcast. It's the #1 podcast, yo.
Yeah, him and Joe Rogan, man.
Yeah, and the thing is, Joe Rogan's, the other top podcasts are fueled by, high-profile guests, celebrity interviews. And Joe rarely interviews anybody. It's the top podcast just on the strength of him just chopping it up with his folks, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so Rory and Mal broke off from the podcast for like a month? Probably like a month.
Yeah, it was a couple weeks, like 6 weeks. Close to 2. Month and a half. Right.
So they broke off from the podcast and they were like, all right, we out until further notice. They weren't really transparent about like what happened or what the status of things were. And so Joe Budden, I'm just giving a recap. So Joe Budden ended up replacing him for a few weeks with a couple of his other friends.
And I wasn't mad at that either, yo. I wasn't mad at that.
Okay. All right, good. So yeah, that's the recap. So I'll let you go first, and I'll respond to them.
Okay. Yeah. On some real shit, like that's a podcast that's really near and dear to my heart personally.
Yeah. I'm day one.
I'm
day one with the Joe Budden.
Me too. I'm day one with the podcast. I mean, I remember Shorty when he was out here doing a YouTube joint with him and Tahiri, like. But that was one of my favorite rappers. You know what I mean? Right. Me being from Jersey,
right.
He was a rapper.
You put me on to him back then. I mean, I knew he was, but you put me on to the mood music.
Yeah, that's my guy, man. So, So I'm really well vested into this particular podcast and the direction of his particular career because I am such a fan. I am a fan.
Right.
What I will say is, it's just hilarious that these 3 gentlemen, honestly, I see where he was coming from in the conversation. I'm going to be real with you. I see where he was coming from. Because, he would be...
You talking about Joe, right? Or you talking about who else?
Joe. Yeah, I understand what he's saying in the conversation. I mean, it's called the Joe Budden Podcast. You know what I mean? He is the curator of the entire podcast. He is the one that basically created this, this avenue. Now, don't get it fucked up. Rory's been there since day one.
Right.
And he's a very, very, valuable part of that particular podcast. But let's be realistic here. Podcast didn't really jump off until we really got a chance to see this, that chemistry between him and Mal. You know what I mean? Once he got in there, that's when it took off because it seemed like everybody was in a genuine, love for each other. They had genuine respect and love for each other.
Right.
I don't know what went left, to be honest with you. Like, I've heard them try to explain it, but they did a lot of explaining without explaining. You know what I mean?
They was tap dancing like Gregory Hines or Gregory Hines 2.0. Oh man, Savion Glover.
Glover, bringing the noise, bringing the funk. They're like, yeah. So it was definitely a lot of that going on. Because I mean, I just thought that, but Joe did make a lot of good points. He said what he needed to say, but I think it was the way that he kind of addressed it. He tried to play like, I got the biggest dick in the room, so y'all can kiss my ass. And that's kind of pretty much where the line of disrespect was kind of brought out there. You know what I mean? You know, like if your man's is the one that really helped you push this thing, forward, you don't tell that man it's none of his business. That's disrespectful. That's ridiculous. You know what I mean? And the fact that you are that arrogant to feel like you should be able to say something like that, you out of order. You know what I'm saying? You're out of order.
Yeah.
But as far as anything, I mean, as far as the idea behind that, as far as him being the guy to be able to say to Rory, listen, you need to take a day off. Hey, bruh, fuck it. Maybe he should have that power, right?
Right.
But it's how you exercise that power, and don't let all this Balenciaga go to your head, literally. You feel me? You dig what I'm saying? You feel me?
I said, don't let the Balenciaga go to your head. Don't let it now.
You feel me? And that's basically what it seemed like what went down for real. You dig? Like,
right.
He started smelling this stuff like, I'm making millions, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, blah, blah, blah. I've got my peoples on. Now my peoples is over here trying to bite the hand that feed them. Got this one nigga over here acting light-skinned.
Right.
And the other dude just acting like a white boy. I gotta let these niggas know. But now you out of these your guys, man. As long as you taking care of them, just show them that level of respect. You know what I mean? That's all it is.
Yeah, I mean, my the way I feel about it is I agree with everything you said, but Joe Budden has a tendency to pop off. But when I listen to, because at first when Mal finally said what really pissed him off, he was like, yo, you told me this podcast is none of my business. Doing this for, the podcast has been on for like 7 years. Mal's probably been a part of it for like 6, maybe 5. So, like I get where he was coming from. It's like, dog, I'm damn near day one with this podcast and I'm your man. So how you gonna tell me that this is none of my business? On top of the fact, like, I came to you trying to figure out what's going on, and then you hit me with that.
Yeah.
Mal was like, I'm out of here, deuces.
And I respect it.
But there was one detail that Joe included after he apologized for what he said that made me understand why he reacted that way. So there's a few different reasons. One, he was already, okay. All right, well, I'll just start here. So basically, they were supposed to meet to talk about the Rory situation. And Joe had hit Mal up. And so Mal and Nate agreed to meet, and so Joe could chop it up with him and explain his rationale behind Rory out of it. And he just, laissez-faire, didn't show up, no call, no show. And then like a whole 3 days later, he randomly hits Joe, like, hey, yo, I'm about to swing through real quick so we can chop it up. In the middle of a work day. Like, nigga, I'm over here building shit so that you can get a bag, right? I'm over here running the business that you just don't care about showing up to, right? So by the time Mal showed up, and because he was like, yo, me and Parks went here working on the podcast, trying to figure shit out and scramble or whatever. Mal pops up like, all right, bet, yeah. So what's the situation? And at that point, I'm pretty sure Joe was like, dog, there is no situation as far as I'm concerned. I'm handling that. This shit ain't none of your business at this point. Because obviously,
because you don't care.
Yeah, it's like, nigga, I don't know if you knew it or not, but this is a multi-million-dollar operation.
Yeah.
In what other multi-million-dollar operation do you just blow off your boss, pause, and not show up? Like, what nigga, what do you think this, all right, ain't none of your business, man. Get the fuck out of here. You know, so like, on top of the fact, and that was the first thing, the first catalyst. I mean, well, not the first catalyst, but that was the last catalyst. But honestly, you know, just to keep it a beam, man. I mean, you know, I've been, like I said, we day ones with the podcast. Let's just keep it a buck, man. Mal is probably the laziest co-host or be like that we have ever seen. I mean, he is coddled beyond recognition. He is able to just come to the podcast, hop on his phone half the time. You know, like, so when I think somebody said, you know, Mal's been a part of this podcast for so long, blah, blah. And Joe was like, yeah, I mean, he's shown up for years.
Yeah.
You know, but sometimes that's about all he does. Right? On top of the fact that Joe is the one going into these rooms, negotiating the deals, making sure they get paid. He's the one paying all of the back end folks, the production people. He's the one doing everything, you know? So like, but Joe was being light-skinned and in his feelings at the time when he told Mal, yo, this business is none of your business, you know? So you can't say that to your man because like, y'all got a real relationship. And Mal is one of the niggas that really does not, Mal doesn't strike me as the most business savvy individual, right? So like, he's not going to look at the situation and be like, yo, I'm fucking the bag up for all of us. Yeah. Let me show up and be punctual to this meeting with Joe so we can really, you know, hash it out, figure out what's going on. Mal was like, I'll get to that when I get to it.
Cause that's my nigga.
Cause that's my man.
Yeah.
You know? And you know, that's a typical, you know, dynamic that ends up happening, you know, when you're working with people that, you know, you know, care about. Cause it's like, I heard a saying one time and they were like, yo, I would rather someone respect me to love me or fear me to love me, because if they fear, because you fear your boss that's not your friend, because they'll just let you go like it's no problem. But you might not fear the person that you love because you know that at the end of the day it's love there. So you don't have to worry about that, right? So when it comes to business and money, it is, you know, working with people that you love and you care about does present certain nuances. Yeah. That typically wouldn't be there, you know, but it also, you know, and it pros and cons, right? So like that's one of the cons, but there are a lot of pros as well.
Absolutely.
But when Mal came in and he kept talking about respect, and I'm like, yo, I feel him. But then when Joe gave those details, of the timeline and how things transpired, I was like, all right. And then Joe was looking at him like, nigga, you riding for this white boy. You just met him a couple weeks ago, nigga. I introduced you to this kid.
He's all like, hey, you live with me for 10 years.
Right. What do you think this is, nigga? But at the end of the day, I get where Mal was coming from, because Mal wasn't riding necessarily for Rory. He was riding on principle. He said, yo, what do I look like showing up to a podcast with our co-hosts? We're a team. And it's like, you tell him he can't come to work or he can't join the pod, and I just show up like nothing happened and we just pod, you know? Now, granted, Mal could have had that conversation, you know, on the side or whatever. Yeah. But that didn't happen because of the timeline, you know? And at the end of the day, people keep saying, I mean, what Mal is saying, you know, what right do you have to tell, you know, Roy that he can't show up to work? And it's kind of like, well, Mal, I have every right, because this is my podcast, right? So like, I make the money, I make sure everything gets done. This is my business, you know? So like yes, I can do that.
Like, and I'm the reason that people are watching it.
Right.
Okay. You do know I used to be a rapper, right?
But I think what ended up happening was when he replaced the niggas, they found out very quickly just how, and I'm not saying they're expendable. I'm just saying that you can't replace chemistry, but you can bring in new people that have different chemistry, and that chemistry also work, right?
And that shit worked like gold, shorty.
Bruh.
It almost seemed like, what are we even doing here?
Yo, they didn't miss a beat.
Not a beat.
Bop, skibbity boo bop.
I don't even like all of Ice's takes. I'm gonna be real with you.
Listen. When it comes to Ice, I just want to be very clear. And I say this, like, all jokes aside, though, I have literally never heard a tape from Ice that I didn't like completely despise with every being in my body. Like I literally hate every single tape that this guy with a passion.
Yeah.
I mean, he came on the podcast in the early days, so I already knew what type of time he was on. I was like, yo, he's about to come to the podcast and waste no time giving some of the most godforsaken takes that we have ever heard.
But it's necessary. Sometimes you need that. Sometimes you need that because there's people out there that think like that. Okay? Not everybody out here likes good shit.
Yo, but listen,
okay?
How you gonna come out the gate, first episode that you on, and say and completely just completely play DJ Premier and all of his beats, just completely just.
Oh yeah.
I don't like DJ Premier.
He did do that though, didn't he? He did do that, didn't he?
And the thing is, one thing to say you don't like DJ Premier beats, which is crazy in and of itself. Especially if you're from above the Mason-Dixon line and you're over the age of 30. Come on, yo.
Yeah.
But on top of that, this nigga didn't even, I don't know if maybe he didn't realize it or maybe he forgot or maybe he just didn't care. I'm like, yo, you do realize that DJ Premier did the theme song for the podcast. You moron. Like, dog. Yo, who names is this, yo?
I'd be like, yo, my dude. I'd have been like, if I was Joe, I'd have been like, my dude, shut the fuck up.
No. But, like,
my theme song?
Joe has editing, right? He left it in there, But, I mean, I guess people just know Ice at this point, so they just like,
Yeah. And he had these wild ass takes for a long ass time too. So I followed him on Twitter for a little while back in the day, yo.
Most of the music he listens to is all the down south, the little Gunna, little Baby, little this.
Yeah.
That's what he listens to. So like he's not a big
like he's like 23. You know what I mean?
I don't understand it at all. I really wanted Marvin to chime in on the JBP. We might do a next time we pod. We'll reconvene. Yo, not for nothing though. I feel like Rory came back on and he was in his bag. Yo, Rory was like really podding. And I'm typically not a huge Rory fan. Like he's kind of forgettable to me. But he came back on and he was like just barring niggas up.
Well,
like, he was like the A-Mike. He was trying to make up.
I think it's because out of all of the two of the other motherfuckers, he's probably the most replaceable, maybe. Because like if you was just to flip it and you get either Ice or Ish on that jump instead of Rory, you know what I mean? Yeah. I'm just saying. But you might be right, though. You might be right.
No, but you know what? Speaking of Ish, I'm glad the team is back, but I need Ish back on the pod. Ish was single-handedly restoring the feeling, bro.
Yeah.
Because he's the only one that doesn't have industry ties. He just keeps it a bean. He keeps it a bean. It's like
all the way.
it's like talking to one of your guys or talking to one of your big homies.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah. And he old for real. And he old for real.
but he old, but he cool. He one of the cool old dudes.
See, Joe don't need to be the old nigga for real. You know what I mean? Because all he talk about is how old his dumb ass is. Yet he do young nigga shit.
Right.
See, it's just the old nigga just to be an old nigga. You feel
Right.
me? Like he like Earth, Wind, and Fire, and he like Grandmaster Chaz and shit. Like, who the fuck?
This nigga like the type of songs where they was still rapping that cadence like ain't no bebop, the huppity hippity hop, like that whole thing.
No. He one of them niggas that still listen to the hip hop where everybody be all like, oh.
All right.
That's what it too. Hey, yo, old niggas used to kill me, yo. Oh, man.
But yeah, it was this one. Oh, so you said, all right, so yeah, I heard, yeah, they were talking about Ice and Westside Gun beefing.
Ice and Westside Gun had a little back and forth. It was just a little bit of spice. Just a little bit of cayenne. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A little bit of sazon. You know?
Yeah.
Wasn't nothing crazy.
Yeah, Rory was trying to be your typical colonizer, like, okay, well, I know this is yours, but I mean, I'm white. So just go ahead and give me that.
Give it up, Slim. Come on now. You know what time it is.
Let me see the accountant, yo.
Right.
I need an audit, yo.
Yeah, let me.
Hey, I wonder the level of offended he was when he came to him with that shit. Like the moment, like we heard how he felt about it, but I would have loved to see his eyes.
Like, what?
Like when he said, you want to what?
You want the accountant?
Wait. You want to audit my business because you're on my staff?
Like, whoa there. Slow down, buddy.
You want to audit my business because I pay you so good?
Never in the history of ever, though.
Not in the history of ever.
Oh, so you want to
my paperwork look like? Come on.
You want me to sell you part of my YouTube, give you ownership over my YouTube account, which is literally self-titled Joe Budden YouTube that I've had he had that YouTube prior to the podcast.
Yeah.
He was the first one to really go viral on some reality. He was reality TV before reality TV.
I'm part of that mob, yo. The chair number one, yo. That chair number one. That's the name of the old YouTube. Chair number one. We used to do all that stuff with Tahiri.
Right.
Yep.
So I'm like, so you want to own that after I've curated content on there, built up a huge following, paid staff to do the editing, production. So you just want to own that now. Why? Because you've been potting with me for a few years? First of all,
buddy.
What kind of sense does that make to me? What incentive do I have?
Right.
Give you are you going to grow the business? How much are you going to pay me for? Oh, so you're going to give me some of my money back that I've been paying you. The shitload of cash that I've been paying you on a weekly basis. You're just going to give me some of that back.
Yo, I think the funniest part about all of this is that, like, listen, I understand his place. Like, I understand where he's coming from because he sits next to a nigga that screams about creatives creating and owners owning stuff, you know?
Right.
So he felt as if,
no, actually,
I'm going to jump out there and try to Joe Budden.
Right.
You know
That was the premise.
That's the whole idea. So, like, see how this works with me. And all he did is get Joe Budden. Joe Budden gets fired every time he decides to speak up like that. He gets fired.
Right.
So if he haven't learned, You know what I mean? You get paid.
The thing is, whenever Joe Budden does that, he's actually providing. He is he provides a large share of the value on whenever he does that. He looks at it. He says, "Okay, this is the value I'm bringing." Now, what they're doing is they're taking the value that I bring, and they're making more money off of that on the back end. So they're selling and marketing my value in ads and so on and so forth. But they're not giving me a cut of any of that.
Yeah.
And they're paying me some flat rate. So Rory thought that he was operating on the level of I provide so much value to the show. So all of the stuff that you do. But then what ended up happening was
he brought some other friends in.
What'd you say?
I said he brought some other friends in. Was like, we can still do numbers with.
Basically like, well, I'll show you my value. And then Joe was like, yo, so you're not gonna come to work? All right, well, let's just swap y'all out real quick just to hold us over. And then the numbers took a brief dip and then went right back up again. And it was like, oh, so we actually found in the span of a couple of weeks that you had no value.
Right.
It took us 2 fucking weeks to realize, one, you don't provide the value you think you provide. 2, I'm paying you way too much.
Right.
And 3, you're a fucking asshole. You're fired.
Yeah, like, and that's how he carried it. And I mean, on so many levels, I was like, yeah. At first, I felt like, okay, Joe being a little disrespectful.
Right.
I think he was really only disrespectful to Mal.
To Mal.
Yeah, to Mal.
We're gonna get into that. We're gonna get into the Mal thing and everything else. But before we get into everything, I just want to start out like this. I think to touch on that. So basically, he was talking about Mal, saying that Mal was saying he was upset that Joe took it upon himself to tell Rory not to come to work. And so Mal was like, nah, fuck that. You can't just do that. You don't have the right to do that. And I think both Mal and Joe were right in that, right? That was one of the only things that was the only thing that Mal might have been somewhat right on. Not in the sense of Joe didn't have the right to do it, because Joe definitely had the right to do it. It's his fucking show, right? He's all the production people. He's paying all the staff. He's the one doing everything. On top of the fact that when he goes and gets a bag, he's paying the lawyers to negotiate the bag.
Yeah. I mean, it's called the JPP, yo. It's called the JPP, and he's the JB in that.
But look,
you niggas Joe Budden Podcast.
Mal's thing was, it's not about whether or not you own the podcast and all that. He's like, yo, what does it make me look like if you tell Rory we not effing with you right now, you can't come to work in pod, and then I come to work like nothing happened? It's going to create a rift between me and Rory. Right? So, and that's what Mal was saying. I'm not necessarily riding for Rory. It's like, and he gave the analogy going to the club, and then niggas get in and they leave their man outside. Like, yo, I'm not leaving him out there. Now you can argue about like people's preference about how they would handle that, but that was his point. He was like, yo, I'm not riding for Rory. I'm riding for the principle of we a team, and I feel like you kind of did him dirty. So I'm not just gonna come in pod like nothing happened, But at the same time, Mal can't really. He has no say so, because he has no say so.
JBP.
It's the JBP, baby.
Right.
I mean, I just felt like he was disrespectful to Mal by telling him it's none of his business. Right. He's been plotting with him for like 7 years. So. Right. Like, I mean, if this is what I do, and like you got to let me know something. Like if it concerns my co-host though, and that's where I felt disrespect with. As far as all the other things, as far as like the lawyers and all the other semantics, I feel like that shit was out of order, and they kind of played their hand. They went all in, and they came in really short. And
really short.
I mean, it is what it is. I mean, at this point, I don't think we'll ever see or hear from Mal ever again. You know what I mean? I really don't. Like, I really think he's
you kind of heard from him. He got on Twitter and He took to Twitter and started tweeting.
Oh, he tweeted?
Yeah. He tweeted.
Yeah, he tweeted.
He got his Twitter fingers, or was he like, solid about it?
He didn't go crazy with the thumbs.
Okay, cool.
No, he did.
He did the typical Mal, I'm too cool to actually say something, so I'm gonna say something without saying anything.
Okay.
So he thought he was speaking in some like real nigga code. But honestly, it didn't mean anything. It was just a bunch of
Okay.
It fell flat.
Typical Mal.
It fell flat.
Yeah,
It fell flat. I think that Joe Budden, like every episode, he was like, "Come on, y'all, talk up, speak." Okay, next subject. He was always saying that, and I didn't get it at first, but then when he explained, he was like, "I was talking to them because it was stuff going on the whole time, but I still had the pod, and it didn't seem as though that they cared as much as I did about the pod." But when Mal was saying how, it's not about contracts. You should talk to me about before you not call. But he was like, you don't care about partners. Why do you care who I tell don't come to the part?
Right, yo. And the other side of that is, and this is the thing a lot of people miss, bro. We really up here talking about this shit like we involved with the pod. But the thing is,
Right, true.
Like this is the biggest podcast. This is the #1 podcast, and it's not big because of celebrities or interviews. It's big because of the dynamics of the podcast and the relationships. Right. So I feel like it's good to talk about. And plus, it's good from a business standpoint. But when Joe said that to Mal, you got to look at the backstory on that. And Joe said, because he was like, "Yo, Mal, I hit you so I could explain to you why I told Rory he couldn't come to work." And
he didn't answer the phone.
No,
right?
Well, at first he didn't pick up, but then he said he would meet, and he didn't. It was a no call, no show. He didn't meet. So then days go by, like a few days go by, and then Mal's like, "Yeah, I'm about to." He basically hit Joe like, "Ew, I'm about to swing through, y'all. What you doing?" And Joe's like, "Nigga, I'm at work. Me and Parks are working on this multi-million-dollar business that you don't give a fuck about." So anyway, then Mal comes, he pops up. And so at that point, Joe was probably hot. He was like, "Bro, it's clear that you don't give a fuck about this podcast. And I'm paying you a shit." Right? So by the time Mal came over, he was like, "You know what, dog, don't ask me about shit for real. Because it ain't got nothing to do with you. It ain't your business." No. So, like, of course, Joe is not right for saying that. But one, we talking about Joe Budden. The nigga is like, he's real spicy like a female sometimes. He got a lot of ways where he's like damn near bipolar. Yeah. And that's me saying that, like, I bang with everything that Joe has done with the podcast. I even bang with, you put me onto the mood music and all that. So I've been rocking with Joe for a minute, but it is what it is. So by the time they had that conversation, Joe was already fed up. And Mal used that as an excuse to then, and even though I'm sure he was hurt, but he kind of took it to a realm where it's like, "All right, Mal, come on, nigga. I mean, you was in your feelings. Yeah. You all need to chop it up and figure that out. But you about to stay butthurt because somebody said some shit to you that hurt your feelings, and he putting hella bread in your pocket." Like, dog, man the fuck up, bro.
I mean, it's a part-time job though, so it's like fair. You're not even really you get millions for less than 20 hours a week.
On top of the fact, let's keep it a buck. On top of the fact, let's keep it a buck. Mal was probably the laziest B mic or C mic or co-host, whatever you want to call them, that we have ever seen, podcast or otherwise. And the thing is, I like Mal. Like I rock.
I feel like as it started to go, he got a little lazier. Like in the beginning, he used to chop it up a bit. You feel me? Like he used to keep it up.
He would chop it up when he felt like it.
Yeah.
Mal, when he got in his bag, it was like, yo, I bang with Mal. A lot of people don't like Mal. I like Mal. But what I'm saying is once you find out how much Joe is making concessions for them and how much he has set up on a pay scale level, like, yo, they were getting paid in the top 1% of their industry, And so once you find all that out, and then like you said, Marvin, like, you've seen Joe say to them like, "Yo, all right, you got something to say on that? I mean, I can't just." No, you look. We got topics we got to cover. You ain't seen the movie. You didn't watch the show. You didn't hear the.
Like, yo, then he be like, "Yo, peace and blessings. That's cool. That's good. Like, yo, that's all you gotta say about that."
Yeah. So
all right, fam.
Maul,
What the fuck we doing here then?
This nigga would show up and be on his phone half the time like this and shit. And it ain't like, and Maul's not on his phone because he's like trying to pull up some information for the show. No, he's literally just on his phone doing nothing.
Yo, probably playing Roblox or some shit.
This nigga over here playing the pinball game on his phone and shit.
Yeah, it was like, man.
Nah, y'all. He putting money bags under all the baddies motherfucking pictures.
There you go.
Yo, listen.
Hey, yo, every time I scroll down and I see a model, I see money bags and it be more. That joke be bad funny.
Bro, I have no idea. I mean, now, we kind of see where all of his Maul probably, okay, so Joe was paying this nigga so much bread. I think what he was doing is he was outsourcing the scrolling of Instagram to a whole team of niggas to like and follow the baddest joints. So that wasn't even Maul doing that, yo. He was like, yo, I'm getting money now. I ain't gotta do that for myself.
So yo got the busiest money bag emoji I've ever seen in my life, yo. So shouts, cause he be putting it under some of the baddest jokes on that.
And it's so many. And I think he kind of calmed down like a little while back because I started noticing like when I would follow a new joint, I wouldn't see Maul liking them anymore. Okay. They started cooking him on the pod for that.
Okay.
Yeah, because for a minute it was like, how does this nigga know about every joint? I just found out about this page.
Yo, every joint.
But look, before we I'm gonna play one more thing.
You're one of the most generous people I've ever worked with, especially when things are good. And I think on the downside of that, when things are tough, people that are close to you and are friends with you need to know when they need to give a little too, to help out, as opposed to being a burden. And I don't think at any corner of this journey you've ever been selfish or this has always been about the bigger picture.
Well, that's the part when it gets to I read things a little differently, and I'm an owner, so my memory is a little different. When we sat in here before all of this shit imploded, and Rory was offering me to his hands, I'll tell you something. That wasn't the real part I had a problem with you guys. You don't really know me, Savon. You're learning me. I didn't really have a problem with Rory offering me to his hands. I mean, it was problematic, but I never felt threatened. But in that very same podcast, know what the problem was? Rory fixed his mouth to say, well, you want to play little stupid R&B songs in the middle of the pod and ruin everything about the pod, make it some bad pod. I leaned back. Oh. Rory, you don't get to say what makes a bad pod here. You get to say what makes a bad pod on your pod. This pod is going to keep going whether you think it's bad or not. And I encourage you to go start a podcast.
You about to go in.
So you can learn about some of the things that podcasters all across America are faced with.
But wait.
It comes without the luxury of the Joe
There's
Budden
more.
It shouldn't be ego that says that. I got podcasters here. Shit, I went through it where I just didn't know how to get up. But we made it through. Rory and Mal can go start a podcast. Well, no, they can't. Not at least for another year by contract. If they do, I'm going to sue the fucking pants off of them.
Damn.
Hey, yo, hit him with a shiny suit, man, yo.
Hey, dude. Hey, dude.
You better not do it within a year.
But at the end of the day, man, it's not even on some like, yo, he's being Joe is being entitled. He's just keeping it a buck. He's like, bro, I pay for all of this. But it's also his fault because he didn't explain that to them. They were getting paid a lot of money, and instead of them seeing it as, oh, he's taking care of us, they saw it as, where's all this money coming from?
Bruh, they had to know, yo. They had to know. They went on a full-fledged tour and didn't pay for shit.
That's
Wait, like, where you thought that money was coming from? Do you think that shit was just happening because of American Express?
Before Spotify, this is after Complex. Who got the bread in that situation?
This is the update for the Joe Budden Podcast. So we just wanted to, just chop it up one last time about Rory and Mal. I actually had somebody hit me up on Twitter, like he added me and he was like, yo, listen, I expect to hear a recap of the JBP saga on the next episode. So I was like, nigga, say less. We already got 2 in the tuck, and we doing a third one now. So anyway, So let's speak on it. So Rory and Mal did their own response video.
Yeah.
That was an hour long, probably about 40 minutes longer than necessary. Could have been a lot shorter. They were kind of long-winded. And Mal just spent a lot of time taking personal shots at Joe, which kind of didn't do them any favors because he kind of looked like a hater a little bit. But they did a response and they made some good points. And it really kind of
made a lot of good points.
Yeah, it made Joe look kind of funny in the light. So, we just wanted to chop it up. So I'll let y'all, kick it off, and then I'll jump in with my take on it.
So I thought that the rebuttal was telling because it gave Rory and Mal a chance to say their side, and it did make Joe sound crazy because it's like, yo, it seemed like whenever Roy had not even an issue, just brought some stuff up about the podcast, Joe would go off.
Right? Just a question. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, fam, that was me. We just needed 5 minutes.
Right.
I need my 5, fam. Like, you keep going off on another grown man.
Yeah. Well, you know what I mean? Roy, just like they said, Roy was inviting Joe to his hands, a few times on a few different occasions. So, that was definitely getting.
That wasn't really about
that. On God's green earth took Rory serious when he talked about.
I didn't take Rory serious about the hands. I was like, okay,
hands.
Like, stop it, B. But no, what I'm saying is that the fact that every time, the fact that
knock it off, stop it, 5.
Yeah.
The fact that every time Joe said anything, the fact that Rory, every time he said something about the podcast, it was like he would blow up at Roy. I'm like, yo, you only got one time to blow up at me, and it's on. Like, say, like, where you at? You blew up. We need to have a longer discussion. I need my 5 minutes.
You're talking about from Joe's point of view or Rory's point of view?
Rory's point of view, like,
right, okay. Because every time Rory asked about the books, every time Rory asked about accounting, every time Rory asked,
he said that when he met with Elliot, he went off on him.
I'm gonna speak on that though.
Yeah, I saw something in his rebuttal about that though.
Yeah,
like Joe said something about that shit too though. He was all like, I already had talked to Jigga. He said he talked to Jay-Z.
So what happened was this is what happened. So Rory and Mal were just upset that Joe wasn't sharing things with them. Part of that was accounting. And then Rory was getting screamed on, and basically he was just getting linked on all the time every time he came to Joe about. Joe kept sunning him,
Right.
And so specifically it was accounting. The other thing was with Elliot. So Rory apparently met with Elliot. It was an informal meeting. Like they already have a relationship. So Elliot was trying to chop it up with him and find out some information on the podcast. What Rory didn't know is that Joe was already in talks with Tidal at the time, right? So the picture that they painted in Rory and Mal's rebuttal or response was that Rory spoke to Elliot, and concerning a Tidal deal, and then Joe screamed on him, was like, yo, why are you talking to people about the business? This ain't your business. and then came back with a title deal with the same numbers that Elliot told Rory, right? So that leads people to believe that, all right, so Joe got jealous that Rory had connects and he was getting him a deal. And so Joe went to Title himself after that and got his own deal. But Joe was already in talks with Title before Rory spoke to Elliot. And so as a result, and the thing is, I think Joe's beef is, Rory, you would have known that if you had let me know that you were about to meet with Elliot concerning my business, right? So that's where I think that it gets kind of fishy, because, you know, but Rory and Mal are under the impression that they are also owners in the business when they have a profit share. Profit share does not mean that you own the business. It doesn't even mean you have equity. It just means you have a profit share, or a percentage of the profits goes to you. Instead of having a salary, you get a percentage of the profits because you might make more money that way. That doesn't mean you're an owner. And also, just like, yo, you shouldn't be meeting about, if you think it's our business, my business, whatever, you shouldn't be meeting with people without letting me know.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, you got a point. You got a point, right? But when are we going to talk about the real huge, large, light-skinned elephant in the room? I mean, Joe. Joe is sensitive.
Spicy Joe.
Joe is hella sensitive. He's more sensitive than a pregnant titty. And everybody know this. Everybody know this about this man, yo.
Right.
He's the most sensitive, yell on you, scream on you, emotional creature in the planet. And this is coming from a real fan. This ain't no hate. He know he's sensitive. You feel me? So I feel like he kind of he did kind of jump off the window with that. Because he's supposed to be his homies first. You feel me? And business partners second, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just a way that you need to carry it. And I think that he kind of went left. And plus, you can definitely tell the money is definitely starting to kind of get to him a little bit, just a little bit.
Right.
I mean,
why you say that though?
The Balenciaga dad hat, yo. That's never been Joe's move. That's never been his move.
But Joe has always been kind of wild on the fashion tip.
No. He's always been a bum nigga when it came to dress, yo.
Yeah.
You know? And now all of a sudden you get into the bag. Not to say you shouldn't dress better, but it's just the fact that you could tell that things are starting to change. You know what I mean? As far as how he was giving it up. And then
but you know what? I don't know if I agree with that, because he was an asshole the whole time. Like, Rory was like, yo, since 2019, he's been screaming on me. You know? So I don't think it was anything different. Joe's always been an asshole. Joe is an asshole.
I give you that.
You know, so like, and then whether or not he's feeling himself or not, like, I've had a business with somebody before, and I was the one that put together the idea for it. I was the one that, you know, had pretty much the intellectual property, and they built the website for me. And I told him, we do not have an elevator speech for this business yet. So let's hold off until we put that together before we start publicly talking about it.
Okay.
You know, and we were working in spaces where we would meet other people that we want to pitch the business to. And so he started pitching it early, and he was like, yo, I tried to pitch it, and I started messing up because I was like, damn, what should I say? And I was like, nigga, that's why I told you to fucking wait. Like, dog, you don't know what you're doing. And on top of the fact, like, Elliot wasn't in the wrong for trying to talk to Rory while they were in negotiations with Joe, because that's what people do. While you're in negotiation, you might try to talk to the partner, so you can pick him for some details that Joe might not be giving up. Not saying that Rory would do that, but again,
that was the nature.
You should not be meeting and having conversations about my business, because anything could happen. He could pick.
It's a Cold War, man. It's a Cold War.
Exactly. War. So at least, and at the very least, come to me first and tell me, think about it. Roy set up a meeting with Elliot, had the meeting, and at no point did he mention it to Joe. And so Joe finds out after the meeting. And he's like, wait, what? You did who? Nigga, I'm talking the title right. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Right? So like when you're running a business, bro, it shit like that is sensitive. And Joe is an asshole. So he's not going to handle things the proper way. Rory knows he's working with an asshole. Right?
Okay.
But I'm saying as a strategy.
That's etiquette. That's business etiquette.
Right. I'm saying that's business etiquette, but as a strategy, can you see it also two ways? Like if he was really thinking, if he was the thought leader that he think he is, he could also say, what information is Elliot talking about? Maybe I could take that back to the table. Maybe Elliot might say something that I might need. You know what I'm saying? Like, but instead,
but that doesn't have anything to do with Rory going to meet with somebody about his business.
No, I'm saying the way Roy framed it, that it was just a lunch because they already know each other. So it wasn't a detailed business conversation where we going over term sheets and how did, and then
and they also not giving us every detail of that particular conversation either. You feel me?
And I'm pretty sure if you're in negotiations with a company and then the main guy from the company, Hove, calls you after Rory has a meeting with Elliot, Hove hits you. Elliot was probably one of the guys that was trying to see what is the best deal that they could get.
They were just checking his temperature. He was checking his temperature.
Exactly. And so he was doing that with somebody who
did they say that Hove hit Joe Budden? I really ain't got Hove calling Joe Budden.
Joe said it.
You didn't see that. You didn't see that. I didn't send that to you. But yeah, Joe was like, yeah, Hove called me. So like, I mean, at the end of the day, man, I do think, and we can move on from the Elliot thing, because I guess, it's a matter of opinion, But if I have a business, I don't want somebody who doesn't own the business and I'm currently in negotiations. Me and my business manager and attorney are currently in negotiations with the company, and you're going and talking to somebody at the company and not telling me about it. So now you might have said some shit to him inadvertently. Who knows? At the end of the day, you always want to avoid any of that confusion. So why didn't you tell me about it first? But the way he reacted to it was fucked up. But
Pete game though. What if he would have communicated to Roy like, yo, we, prior to him even meeting with Elliot, like, yo, I'm in communications. Like, if respectfully was mine, right? I'm gonna say, yo, I'm in meetings with Jay-Z and them now. I'm gonna tell y'all the day, like before the meeting, So therefore, you already on point. But I don't want to keep stuff on the tuck and not communicate as a boss, like you said. Hey,
but this is the other side of it that I think it shows you how both parties kind of fucked up. Joe fucked up. They fucked up because basically what happened is, I think in the grand scheme of things, Joe gave them a profit, a percentage share of the profits, right? But then as you go along, he started to resent them because he was seeing that they weren't really doing anything. They weren't.
And he was paying them a lot of money.
And he was paying them a lot of money, So like, he shouldn't feel obligated to tell them about the business deals when he's in negotiations, because now he has to worry about. Okay, well, if they want to have input in this deal, when really they haven't been doing anything, right? And I've been trying to get them to be more active. Like it's been so many times on the podcast where he would talk to Mal and Rory and be like, "Yo, y'all gonna like y'all niggas you ain't heard the album, you ain't seen the show, you ain't all this current stuff." And I'm the only one that's staying in tune. And then we come here and I got to carry the pod. On top of the fact that they kind of, as they went along, they weren't really doing anything to innovate and provide value. So at that point, he resented them. So and Joe being an asshole, that's why he's like, nigga, hold up. I'm paying y'all good money. You're not really doing anything. And now that I'm getting close to the bag, you want to start pressing me?
So what I'm saying is, if I'm paying, let's say like Thomas, you like the sweaters, right? You sweater man, right? You wear all the flowers.
I'm not. I'm not sweating, man. I wouldn't agree with that. But yeah,
I'm just saying, but like I'm gonna say, yo,
I don't agree with that language.
Dress. Why don't we do a fashion podcast or like everybody like some of Mal's stuff do be kind of slick sometimes. Like, yo, like where you get that from? Why not say,
Okay.
well, you should be in charge of the respectfully merchandise then. Why don't you hook it up for us?
Right.
Like,
so what are you saying? What are you saying? Are you saying Joe should have said that
to Mal?
Okay. So whose fault is that? What are you saying?
I'm saying like, well, Joe didn't really he communicated that.
Oh, okay, you saying Joe didn't say? Okay, so yeah, Joe said that to them niggas.
Yeah, he said that to him.
He told Mal.
He said that verbatim, actually.
Yeah, like that's literally what he said to Mal. It's crazy. It's crazy you said that.
Some merch.
Yeah, he said to Mal, he was like, Mal, listen, there are ways that you can provide value outside of just sitting in this stool and talking half of the time. When you're not on your fucking phone while I'm paying you hella bread. So he was like, yo, you into the fashion stuff? Like, Mal, listen, we could do a whole, product line, merch line, and you can design some clothes. You on that fly shit, that's your brand. So run with that. And we got a whole platform to support you with. Mal didn't do anything. You see what I'm saying? So, you said, what'd you say?
No, I said, I don't know why that's an easy lane. Like, to me, it's like no brain.
But Marvin, that's the whole thesis, is that these niggas didn't really do shit. And so you're not doing anything while you're getting paid, overpaid, overpaid.
I thought Joe got angry and he said, "This is what Mal should have been doing." I didn't hear him say, "This is the play that I told him to run with."
Yeah, that's what he said. He told Mal that. Yeah,
because when I heard it, he said everything you said, but he didn't put it in the terms
Marvin, we can't spend time on trying to relitigate what he actually said. He said that. He told Mal. All right, so you can argue whether or not we weren't there and we don't know what actually happened, but we can only go off of what they're saying. And plus, Mal never addressed that. He never addressed that Joe told him yo, I need you to bring some value, and I will even give you the value. I'll give you a value proposition for you to take advantage of. And he didn't do it, So I think at the end of the day, it's like he was just mad at the niggas and he resented them. And then he left things so open-ended. So it was just messy. It got messy. And these niggas on that, but the last thing I want to say is these niggas were on that video clip talking like they knew that they didn't own the intellectual property, but they were talking like they were bosses. But what I will say in their defense is that Joe definitely should have been giving them quarterly breakdowns of the earnings and the expenses, or at least annual at the very least. They should have been getting that. But I think part of that, the reason that might not have been happening is because the podcast wasn't making no money. So he was taking money from the pull-up. He was getting money from pull-up and all this other stuff. All that's under the Joe Budden brand. He might even been taking a loss paying them so much. So specifically Joe Budden Podcast might not have been profitable. But you would have to see the books to see that.
So will he have claimed it as losses then?
Yeah, I don't know if you would claim it as a loss.
If you got your business right, then most
but I don't know if now I'm not gonna get into, I don't know anybody's business, but I don't know if you would claim the Joe Budden Podcast as a loss.
No, I'm saying
if you're taking money.
Would Mal and them be expenses?
Say it again.
Wouldn't Mal and Roy be expenses?
Right. But what I'm saying is, if you're taking money from if you're taking money from other things, profits from other things, and then putting it into the podcast, and yes, it could be expenses. It could be, I don't know, because I'm not an accountant, but what I'm saying is, if he's paying them a good amount of money and they aren't really providing the value, then he might have got resentful. Like, dog, you getting money, you got a nice apartment, I'm paying.
Was he contractually obligated
Yeah, but was he contractually obligated to show them those books or whatever? Or,
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know if he was contractually
accounting?
obligated.
They were contractually. He was contractually responsible for the accounting. That's how they get their information from.
Right.
Because their profit share.
Right.
So
in order for them to understand,
and they're supposed to get that quarterly.
Right.
Then don't send me no young ass Excel spreadsheet then.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. And that's
So,
that right there is where he fucked up at right
yeah.
there.
And honestly,
that's some suck shit.
That might be the loophole.
That's the shadiest shit.
Yeah. And that might be the loophole for them to actually get way more money in a suit. Because I feel like they're probably going to try to. They probably gonna try to.
Oh yeah.
You know,
they gonna get this.
Yeah.
They gonna get this.
Yeah. I mean, and I mean, they might not, but they're gonna try. And if they do get it, it'll be because of that, most likely.
And then on top of that, apparently it's a $400,000 mistake by an accountant.
Yeah, I don't really know the details on that. Like Joe talked about it, they talked about it.
You call yourself an accountant if you can't count before.
Yeah, and apparently this is supposed, right. And this is supposed to be like a reputable accounting firm, and they admitted to the mistake.
Yeah,
like the accounting firm admitted to it.
Yeah, I would feel away.
So, you know, but I
on both sides though, because it ain't him that did it. You know, it ain't Joe that did the shit. It ain't Rory that did the shit.
And you know what? It might it could be Joe, because he is the one that demanded that they produce accounting records, right, and a breakdown. And then he also said on the podcast that he kind of gave them guidance on what he wanted to show in the accounting. Because I think Joe said, I want to show them just how much I'm overpaying them so they can stop thinking I'm trying to do them dirty. You know? And I think, you know, obviously whatever he sent them was not comprehensive enough. And it wasn't really official. So
I don't think it came out like that either.
But again, I still don't think this
what
is
you mean? What you mean?
Oh, go ahead. What you say?
No, I'm saying I think that he probably got emotional and he probably started saying a bunch of wild stuff and screaming and just walked off. You know what I'm saying? Like you know how he tend to go off on these tangents and it's like, you're not even correct. Like, yo, what are you talking about? And then he got off on the tangent, like, and everybody like, I'm not trying to hear it anymore. Then fuck it.
Yeah. I mean that's part of it. But then you got Mal. You got Mal that was like, oh, this is the thing Mal said. Mal was like, yeah, one time he said some things that really rubbed me the wrong way, because we were at the when they were on tour, and Joe they had a line wrapped around the building, and Joe was like, I got him wrapped around the building, and Mal was like, nah, you don't have nothing wrapped around the building. We got it wrapped around the building.
I mean, in so many ways, he's got a point. I've been to a Joe Budden show. I'm gonna tell you, I got mad space to dance.
Yeah, I mean, look, listen, it's no secret that Joe Budden's rap career wasn't the biggest. But to say that his rap career is commensurate with his podcasting carear, to make that comparison is kind of like,
it was a low blow.
Yeah, at that point it's like, all right, nigga, you hate. You're mad. You're upset.
I don't think Joe meant it. I think Mal took that totally wrong. It's like he was just basing it off of what he was saying. Like, I read the building. Like, it don't mean that I'm not thinking. Like, intuitively, I know that it's us. Like, it's.
Nah. You talking about? You said, you're saying that Joe didn't mean it that way.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think he meant it that way.
But see, Mal.
It just seemed like a low blow for nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's when you start exposing yourself. When you start, taking low blows and taking little pot shots at people that have nothing to do with business. And I mean, quite frankly, Mal, he shouldn't be making statements like that, because the argument could easily be made that would have happened without Mal. And it also could be made that it couldn't have happened without Mal. But the argument could be made either way. And Mal is not really like a huge enough draw for him to be saying that, yo. So like,
but he was in the beginning though. Like they had this level
that was
in the beginning that really pushed the podcast forward. Like, you know what I mean? And that's partially why I got popular. Once they found the perfect, once they found that perfect, union right there, then it made all the sense in the world. And it just kind of flowed. And that's why it was so dope. Yeah. And that's why everybody enjoyed it so much. Right. I mean, that's partially why like they got Ish and Ice on there now, and they still got that same level of chemistry. You feel me? So that's why.
And I'm not disagreeing that I'm never saying that Mal didn't bring value. I'm never saying that Rory didn't bring value. Right. Okay. I'm only saying that value that they brought is not. It's not commensurate with saying they are the value in the podcast.
Okay. I got you. Right.
They brought a certain amount of value. It's kind of like if you got a nigga on your team that he just hits the boards all day, he gets rebounds, he gets loose balls, right? Or you got a pull-up shooter, right? So like you pass him the ball at the last seconds of the game, he pull up, boom. That's what he's there for. Literally comes in just to do that. But to say that the team couldn't have won without you is a different conversation. You're a role player, right? So like you provide, and then we saw when he replaced them that the chemistry wasn't distinct to them. They have a distinct chemistry that worked, but then you replace them with a different distinct chemistry, and the numbers took a brief dive and went right back up. And then everybody in the audience was like, oh snap. Yo, this shit is actually better now. You feel me? So like, so that's when you kind of run into a situation where, all right, and Mal says some stuff about like, yo, I know the type of energy I brought to the podcast, and he's right. Yeah. But he doesn't have the only energy that could have brought some value to the podcast. It could have been done with somebody else. You're kind of
I feel like he probably is only taking it that route is because they are cool. They definitely friends.
And that's his man. But that's why you get paid the way you get paid, my nigga. You don't have to do anything. You barely have to show up. And half the time you barely do show up. You know what I mean? Right. And I'm still cutting you hella bread. So, it's going to be interesting. I think it's a good conversation just because when it comes to business and how it all works, profit share does not mean ownership. And because I automatically thought, that means equity. That means you're a part owner. But it doesn't necessarily mean that.
Don't mean it.
So
decision makers.
Right.
More like
you're not putting the bread up. You're not putting
the bread up, not bringing any outside like investments into the podcast.